Of the Hive, Chapter 5, Part 3. Fluffy's interior was about as strange of an experience as Twilight expected it to be. The floating giant had large gas bladders that were covered in resin to make it easier to walk. Twilight saw no trace of metals, glass, or cloth. In their place was nothing but bone, muscle, and rough scales. Twilight gasped at seeing a large blood vessel the size of her head as she followed the queens to their destination.
I get the feeling that Chrysalis doesn't believe in non-organic technology.
The Red Queen led them into a dining room with chairs made of cartilage, covered in a thick coat of hair, while the table itself was milky white bone. Chrysalis sat at the head of the table, while their two guests sat across from each other.
Now you have to tell me all about yourself, Twilight. Ever since I found out about you, I've been wondering how you were turned into a royal.
Twilight paused in the middle of lifting a small bone cup.
Wait, you're surprised that I was turned into a royal, but not a changeling?
She looked to Cadista, who shrugged, prompting Chrysalis to elaborate.
Well, it's not uncommon for some hives to kidnap an affluent member of foreign society for various reasons. Some good, some not. But you are the first to have ever been successfully converted into a royal changeling. Not that there have been many attempts, mind you.
She faced Cadista.
It was a complete transformation, right? As far as I can tell, it is. Although a few pieces of her old self remain. Her coat, eyes, most of her hair, and her cutie mark, oddly enough.
Twilight examined a plate of strange-looking food that was placed in front of her.
So, I was supposed to look like you?
Chrysalis and her hive were herbivores, but she kept a small store of meat when she entertained Cadista, who dug into the blue steak with a knife.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't exactly sure. Every royal appears exactly like their mother upon hatching. They can make changes later in life if they wish. Unlike drones, who can change a lot about our appearance and abilities, but only through alchemy. These changes happen as quickly as you would desire, but kite needs to be shed before a new color can take its place. The few ponies I know of that have been changed into drones became identical to every other drone in the hive, save for above-average intelligence.
She cast a snooty glance at Chrysalis.
One of these days those smart drones will be the death of you. There's a reason no one else uses highly intelligent drones.
Cadista snorted playfully, before addressing Twilight.
It's entirely possible that your self-identity was strong enough to prevent all changes, save for the stripe of orange in your hair, and your cutie mark.
Twilight held her tail in her hooves, and levitated a lock of orange hair with her magic.
So the only part of the old me are my memories and my looks? Beneath all that, I'm just as much of a changeling as Cadista is. Is that gonna be enough for my old friends and family, or would I have been better off letting my colors go gray and orange?
Cadista could sense Twilight's dour mood.
She needs time to think. She knows to ask if she needs advice.
The two queens gossiped about various politics, while Twilight fretted over her trip to Equestria. By the time she finished her blue steak, she had come to a conclusion.
Everything I remember of them makes me think that they'd accept the new me, but will they be able to look past my changes? Well, there's no way to find out until I see them. Twilight, dear.
Chrysalis called out of the blue, causing her to snap to attention.
If you do decide to change your natural appearance, at least try to keep your cutie mark. I think it looks rather becoming on you.
Twilight looked down at her flank, and a smile crossed her face.
To ponies, their mark represents their talent and self-identity. I think a purple starburst laying on top of orange is rather fitting. I won't be changing it at all.
Cadista smiled, while Chrysalis scrunched her face in thought.
So, aside from keeping Celestia from warring with us, what do you bring to the table?
Twilight furrowed her brow, as she let go of her tail.
What do you mean?
Cadista held her peace, while Chrysalis spoke.
What I mean, darling, is what improvements will you bring to our race? Keeping Celestia from attacking us is all well and good, but you could lounge on your flank all day and do that. But what are you going to do to improve your hive?
Twilight mulled over the question.
She brings up a good point. What can I do?
A studious look fell upon her face.
Play to my strengths, of course. My hive is already a center of learning and research, and I am no slouch in either respect. Right now, the best thing I can do for the hive is to learn. An interesting answer,
Chrysalis admitted.
But how will learning benefit your hive? I'm just gonna assume that she means outside of what's necessary to perform my duties as queen. As Cadista once told me, the demeanor of the queen is reflected by the hive. And I think there's no higher calling than the pursuit of knowledge and friendship.
Chrysalis succeeded the first goal, but laughed at the second.
Friendship? Hardly need for that when your drones are united under you anyway. Well, it doesn't have to be with drones. Why can't friendship be between queens like you and Cadista? I could even expand that to include Equestria as well.
Chrysalis leaned back in her chair with an amused grin.
My, don't you have some lofty goals? Well, I would comment on it, but it's not my place to raise another's heir. Nevertheless,
she added with playful curiosity.
I will be watching you closely, young one. You ought to prove very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. Thanks?
Kadista sought to give her a chance to escape Chrysalis' questions.
Twilight, why don't you learn how to disguise yourself from one of Chrysalis' drones? It would be good for you to learn how another hive functions.
She turned to Chrysalis.
Don't you agree? How long has she been out of the shell?
Chrysalis stared at Kadista with faux indignation.
You've let your priorities become garbled, I'm afraid.
She faced Twilight and noticed that she was mostly done eating.
Kadista and I have been allies for centuries. It is only fitting that I extend that friendship to you as well. I'd be happy to have one of my children instruct you.
Without a noticeable order, a drone with solid cyan eyes approached Twilight from Chrysalis' direction. Both its appearance and its voice seemed genderless.
This way, Your Highness.
Twilight was caught off guard by the lack of self-introduction.
Alright.
The nameless drone guided Twilight through various corridors while she surveyed the interior of the craft. Everything was organic. The walls, the floor, even the doors were muscles that automatically moved by walking near them. The lighting was from bioluminescent pods, casting everything in a bright yellow light. Twilight noticed the drones were quite different as well. She saw massive chimera-sized drones, some half her size, while others had specialized appendages or spines grown in various places. The one thing that she noticed above all else was that they had no visible irises beneath the cyan glow of their eyes.
It's even brighter than the ones from my hive. Why do you guys so vastly differ from each other? We are all bred to specialize in a specific task. Most of the drones that you see here live within Fluffy to keep it healthy. I see, so like an immune system of sorts.
The conversation lapsed into silence for a few minutes.
Do you have a name? I do not.
I replied emotionlessly.
Why? Names are unnecessary to serve my queen. Don't you want a name?
This time the drone looked back at her with a puzzled look.
How would having a name better serve my queen? If she has need of me, she knows how to find me. Well, serving a queen is all well and good, but what about your personal time?
The drone's confusion only mounted.
Personal time? Yeah? You know, when you're not working?
Realization dawned on the drone's face and it turned back around.
We sleep. Frivolous activities waste energy. Did Chrysalis decree that? She doesn't have to. We live only to serve the queen. All else is meaningless.
Twilight's ears drooped.
Oh. Sounds empty.
They arrived in a small chamber that had highly reflective resin on the walls and had been smoothed out to be an effective mirror. A single light hung from the ceiling, but the all-encompassing mirror made it more than enough to leave the chamber well lit. The drone walked to the side before becoming rigid. A moment later, the glow of its eye faded to reveal reptilian slits, and it spoke in Chrysalis' voice.
Oh, my favorite mirror room. Always a good place to test new disguises.
Twilight jumped at hearing the high-pitched voice.
Chrysalis?
The drone smirked playfully.
The look on your face is priceless, my dear, but you didn't honestly think that I would leave this lesson to a drone, did you? Well, I thought you were busy talking with Kadista.
The drone puppet smirked.
Oh, you are fresh from the shell, aren't you? A queen must know how to be in 1,000 places at once, directing the hive as she sees fit. Surely she's exaggerating. How's it possible to do that?
The puppet tilted its head and thought.
Well, I have some idea of how your hive mind operates, but with mine, each drone lends their mental facilities to me. With that, I'm able to spread my influence across a very large space without being overwhelmed.
The puppet seemed to waver a bit before becoming a carbon copy of Twilight.
I believe it came here for instruction.
Instead of the shocked look Chrysalis was expecting, Twilight shot forward to inspect her doppelganger.
So that's what I look like to the others.
She moved all around, until a look of mock indignation crossed her face.
What? My flank is not that big!
The puppet let out an uproarious laughter, along with Twilight.
I haven't laughed like that in years. I think you and I are going to get along just fine, Twilight Sparkle.
Twilight was enraptured by the control Chrysalis had over the drone.
I didn't know queens could take over a drone like this. The most I've been able to do is direct a group of arguing engineers into fixing the problem with Port Engine 5 instead of arguing over whose fault it was.
Chrysalis arched a curious eyebrow.
Well, I never had problems with bickering drones, but occasionally some of the smarter drones out there need some more direct guidance from the queen. Personally, I prefer using simple-minded drones to avoid the problem altogether. Now back to the task at Hoof. Go ahead and ask your Link how to formulate your disguise. Right.
Twilight focused on the hive mind and made a request. The Link eagerly gifted her the information.
Good. Now, jumping straight into a full-body disguise is not recommended. You have the knowledge, but not the experience. As such, you should start your first disguise piecemeal. Begin with your coat. Alright.
Twilight's thoughts drifted to Flexi, and her purple fur wavered, before turning gray.
Now wait until you're comfortable with maintaining each piece of your disguise before moving on to the next.
Nodding, Twilight changed piece by piece. Her mane turned solid orange. She shrank 2 inches and her eyes changed last. She looked at herself in the mirror, twisting and turning to see every facet of her temporary image.
So this is what I would have looked like as a drone. Well done!
The puppet praised, making a close inspection.
Utterly flawless, you truly do learn fast. But then again, wearing a disguise comes naturally to all changelings.
The drone dropped its disguise, prompting Twilight to do the same.
So, now that you can craft and maintain it, try to disguise yourself faster this time. You need to be able to raise it in an instant. Okay, here goes.
For the next hour, Twilight dropped and crafted the same disguise over 100 times, before the change was so fast that it looked like an orange flame engulfed her from hoof to horn as the disguise took hold. The puppet gave Twilight one last inspection.
Well done. Now it's time to branch out. Try to appear as a pony.
A cloud hung over Twilight.
As a pony.
Without needing to give it much thought, Twilight turned to the mirror and brought up her disguise. Gone were the holes, wings, and the orange stripe in her hair, while the round pupil and familiar spiraled horn returned. Twilight stared into her old pony self. Pain lanced through her mind as flashes of old memories bubbled to the surface. Standing in front of a mirror while Rarity put the finishing touches on a dress, the simple act of brushing her mane and teeth, standing propped up against the glass of a candy store as a filly, giggling at a reflective golden trophy depicting her as the winner of a magic contest, and many more memories crammed themselves into her mind's eye. Twilight sat in her haunches to try and rub the migraine away as her disguise faded. The puppet had never seen such a reaction before.
Are you well? Yes, I'm fine.
Twilight replied weakly, as her highly organized mind quickly filed each memory away.
Just regaining some of what I've lost.
Chrysalis could tell that this was a sensitive subject.
Well, you've gotten the basics down, and all you need to do now is practice. I'll leave the drone outside for you when you wish to leave. Thank you, Chrysalis.
She replied flatly.
Of course.
The drone's eyes returned to normal, and it departed, leaving Twilight alone with her thoughts. She looked up at her true reflection and grimaced.
When I go to Equestria, I hope I'll be able to walk around without wearing a disguise. This is who I am now. All I can do now is hope my friends and family will accept me this way.
I had a feeling that was gonna happen, and no doubt it's gonna happen again when she finally sees her friends again. Anywho, let's get on to our intriguing donators. Top donators are 630, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and Only One Thing. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Sword Brother Mordred, Omicron Larray, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Runes9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Drake Lovedragon, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Line12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hot Zaza, Conver, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.